Welcome, one and all, to Club Corbie for the 30th of April 2020. The last day of the month. And welcome also new viewers joining us on YouTube. Today is our first ever simulcast on Twitch and YouTube. And boy, that's a bit bright. That didn't look like that when I tested the camera before the stream started. Oh man, now I'm gonna have to go in and tweak the camera settings a little. We're having a few technical issues, I think, today that we have to iron out. YouTube stream is not it's throwing up a lot of errors and saying that it's not a high enough quality connection. Let's just tweak that a little bit. And the contrast on the blue art, which is what we're going to be inking on today, is going to always be a little bit pale because that's just the way that it came out, unfortunately. Hopefully the on the penciled art that you can see on the right hand side of your screen there, that should be a bit clearer. And I've brought with me, so I got some new pens. Actually I got these like a week ago. I was saying I needed some new very fine pens. I've got to open the bag for starting the stream, so now I've got to do that live on air. And these are 0.1mm pens. So unless I'm mistaken, I have a 0.5mm, 0.05mm. We should probably use that for the very fine details. And really this art is small enough that we're probably going to end up alternating between both. So, before I begin, status update. We are on, this particular page is page 5, but the first 4 pages now of this series of, stories so far, recap strips, the first 4 of them are inked and lettered. They're basically complete, they're ready to be put online whenever we get to that point. And 5 through 10 are penciled. But that's it, so we've done quite a few penciling streams online lately just to get us over the finish line as far as that goes. I want to welcome all of our new viewers. If this is your first time watching, whether it's on Twitch or on YouTube, I want to keep expanding the reach of the show of Club Corbie and keep finding ways to reach new viewers. If you've never read the comic, Corinne Morgan Corbie is the name of the comic that I've been working on for the last, how many years now? I started, well, it had been in development for many years before that, but really started properly working on it in early 2017, and it took until the end of 2018 before we got the first couple of issues online, and now we have 4 issues online, which doesn't sound like a lot in all that time, but it's been a long road for us in terms of getting the work out there, because I do every aspect of the comic myself. I write the comic, I pencil the comic, I ink the comic, and as far as the first 4 issues goes, I coloured the comic as well, lettered the comic, so I'm really kind of a jack of all trades in that respect. I try to do each of these things to the best of my ability, and on these streams share that with all of you and show you where I'm at in terms of what we're doing, making the comic, and also give you some sort of how-tos and some tips. So, you know, if you're interested in making comics, hopefully these streams will be educational to you and informative. Or if you just like the comic already, if you're a reader of Corbie, then I hope the stream will be enjoyable to you too. You don't necessarily have to make comics to enjoy the stream. I think you can just be a reader as well. And so some days we are inking, like today, or we're penciling, or we're lettering. We do all these things on stream. We'll probably do some colouring at some point as well. I was suggesting yesterday the possibility that we might do some sort of writing workshop streams or something like that, if there was any interest. We do this every weekday between 2 PM and 4 PM UK time. So a lot of my mornings is usually just sort of like a mad scramble to try and get the content ready and get the word out that we're doing the stream and all that kind of stuff, get organised, get ready. And then for a couple of hours every afternoon I'm here and I'm making comics. I think I'll swap out and use the really tiny pen there, the 005. I'm going to get in there and I'm going to try and do these really small details like the fingers. See, I don't know what the deal is with the YouTube stats, because I'm looking at the dashboard and it's saying excellent connection now, before it was saying, oh, the connection is so poor. So it's reviewing between one thing and another. So is it working? Is it not? I'm not sure. Okay, I'm gonna live dangerously here and make a change to the art, because this line here hits the outer frame, the outer line of the character too much, and I want it to come straight down. So I'm just gonna adjust it. I really don't like having to do things like that, because as I've said on stream before, it's not the inker's job to start ad-libbing and making changes to the art. But of course it's my art, but the point is, when you're taking on the role of the inker, you try to bring out the best of the art as it is. And enhance it, and not just start doing whatever you want. I'm kind of holding my breath here, because the most challenging part of inking any of these panels is always these tiny sort of faces and the little details here. Can be really difficult to get right, and they can really sort of make or break an image as well. Fortunately, if you have a very fine pen, that can help a lot. Whew, okay, I think we can sort of breathe a bit of a sigh of relief now, because the hardest part of drawing Nimhain here is over. Now we just have to do that a bunch more times. But that's the name of the game. You do it once and then you do it again and again and again. That's what drawing comics is all about. And it's a lot of fun and it's very rewarding, but let's not kid ourselves. There's a bit of a repetitive element to it as well. You have to draw the same characters over and over again and try and keep them consistent and draw them well, at least to the best of your ability. Okay, I think we'll go on and start working on Maca next, and we will start to work on the outline here. And that line's probably a bit blobbier in the centre than I would like, but I feel like we need to thicken this line out a little bit, just so that both sides match. Oh, okay. Okay, and again I think we can start to go in and work on some of the very small details as well, using finer pen. I kind of feel like one of the gloves is thicker than the other, which is going to bug the heck out of me. So fill in the inside of the thicker arm and the outside of the thinner arm, then we could sort of balance them out and get them to look a bit more even. Might not be perfect, but it can at least be closer. Again, we'll go in and start to try and work on these teeny tiny facial details. I wonder how much we're actually going to get done on this stream, because we're 40 minutes in and we've still only really covered a small amount of this page, so oh, that's okay. Takes a little longer than usual. Admittedly, there is a lot going on this page, so that last panel in particular is going to be a heck of a thing. I know that because it was a heck of a thing to pencil it. Okay, let's start adding in some of these background details, I think. And really start to fill out some of the remaining details of this page before we start to add in some of the shading elements and so on. We'll start by inking the sort of vortex area behind the characters. So we have a bit of flexibility here because there's no hard and fast rules about what any of this in the background is supposed to look like. We can be a bit improvisational in terms of what it looks like and how we ink it. And just sort of settle into it. It's not like when we're drawing faces, or inking faces I should say, where we want to get the closest possible rendition of what the face needs to look like, otherwise it's gonna, if it's off, it's really gonna mess up the art. Just throwing in a lot of these sort of black, I don't know what we'd want to say, sort of glob shapes. And as always, I want to apologise if I go a bit quiet and I'm not very talkative when I'm inking, even more so than when I'm penciling. You can imagine it sort of becomes a bit taxing mentally to keep your mouth moving and your eyes moving and keep the pen where it needs to be. There's definitely a bit of concentration involved. But I do appreciate everybody who tunes into the stream. And joins me through these sort of sometimes very quiet contemplative moments. It's all a necessary part of making comics. Sometimes it's you've just got to put the work in, and you know, you've got to focus. Get the job done. I think I'll leave that side to dry. Let that ink settle in, and I'll start to build up the vortex effect on the other side. Probably helps to keep any sort of improvised lines and details here very small to help differentiate them from the main character so it doesn't all run together. Like I said, we do have a bit of scope at this point for improvisation. Usually I try to adhere to what's on the pages, which is possible, but here we can just sort of settle into it. Okay, let's move on and start filling sort of the centre area. I'm really looking forward to getting this first series of these 10 daily comic strips completed. Also, admittedly, there's a bit of anxiety there because you know, it's the old thing. There's always that kind of anxiety because you're always hoping that the work is going to do well and will be well received. And honestly, I can't say that Corbie has ever been poorly received. It's just never been received. I don't tend to get a lot of feedback on the comic. I haven't really, in terms of people reading it in all this time, and you know, the content that goes on Instagram and so on tends to just sink without a trace, and that's, you can imagine then that that's quite worrisome for me in terms of really starting to move towards doing something that is more accessible to people on social media, and taking Corbie down that avenue is sort of where I see the series going. I don't think people will go to external websites for individual comics much anymore these days. I think everybody's so stuck on the big social media platforms, and that's where they're going to stay. And so I feel like I need to bring the story to those sorts of platforms in a way where people will read it. Unfortunately, I also know that social media algorithms have not been kind to us so far. And so I worry a lot about if all the work we're doing here is going to end up being for naught, because all these many hours of work we've done are basically going to give us 10 days worth of content. And you know, when it's done, we've got to move on to the next thing. You can imagine if it all just goes online, it all gets like 2 likes and that's the end of it. That's going to be a real blow. More than just getting likes, I need people to really start to get invested in the story and to want to keep coming back. Almost there with this. I don't know, I think this might be the most over-the-top page in terms of the amount of detail that's on this page. With the portal on the first one, and sort of the effects, the smash effect on the second panel. The third one has another sort of portal effect, and the fourth one has this countryside detailing going on. And I kind of feel like it's all a bit overwhelming. Usually I have at least a couple of panels on each of these strips that have little to no background detail, just to try and balance things out. As I've said on previous streams, if you do full background detail on every panel of your comic, it can get a bit overwhelming. The reader doesn't need that amount of information in every single panel. You've got to give them a little bit of breathing room. Otherwise it's just too much information, too much noise. Yeah, this panel admittedly is, or this page I should say admittedly is a bit of an exception, because there's a fair amount going on. Okay, I can start adding some shading now. I can't believe we've been at this for an hour and we've only got one panel done, and we haven't even gotten it done. We really just were adding in the finishing touches now. So we're going to take the smallest pen that I've got and we're going to start to add some strokes in and just sort of add some shading to really render these characters. We're going to try and do it as faithfully, make it as faithful to the original pencil art as I can. Okay, living dangerously, I think we can add in some darker strokes with slightly thicker pen right in the centre, like that. And we'll go back to the thinnest pen that we have. Add some vertical lines just to create the illusion of shading there. Some very, very light strokes across the face here. I'm not a big fan of doing a lot of shading of faces because strokes that are meant to be interpreted as shading can sort of end up running into the facial detail, and even then that's almost too much. So I try to keep this very light. Just add a little bit more just to balance it out a little bit, but I don't want to do too much there. And we repeat the process for Maca. At this point I'm really just sort of switching between thinner and thicker pens just to get the look that I want exactly. And again, I'm trying to sort of replicate these strokes from the original pencil art to the best of my ability. Just very lightly adding a bit of shading to the hair here. I think if we want to be entirely accurate, we need to a little bit of detail to the detailing on Nihein's skirt as well. And that is not quite done because we've got to do the shading of the background detail as well. And a little bit of the floor, and then this panel is going to be done, but I can't believe it's taken this long. Right, ideally the best way to do it is start at the top, and then that way we won't be messing up the lines we've already done if we just pull the ruler down a little bit each time. We might go over the panel lines as well, but that's okay for our purposes. I don't mind. I usually have to clean everything up a bit to make everything meet up with the panel border once I scan everything in anyway. So if we end up doing some art that goes over the panel border, I'd rather have that than something that's too small and doesn't meet the panel border, and then I have to add extra details in, but that's a story for another day. That's what happens when you scan everything in and you're trying to adjust everything to get it to sit right. You know, some of these lines that we're doing here are very faint. Again, that's alright. What we're going to do is go back in afterwards and add some very dark lines right in the top corner there, in keeping with the light source. The light obviously coming from sort of the vortex in the middle of the image. We could still add a little bit more just to fill this in, as long as we don't hit any of the art that we've been working on for so long and mess anything up. Make sure we know where to stop and where to start. And the lines can get a bit further apart as we go down. Drink. Here we go. Stick this back up here. And then we'll take a slightly thicker pen. At the very top of the image. Add in some much darker lines. Then I can almost go one larger again. Let's say this pen's on medium. Might be best to double check that. Yeah, I think that's it. We can add in a few strokes right at the very top that are really dark. And then you can see we've got sort of a progression there. By the way, It might seem obvious, but don't forget to cap all your pens again when you're done. I know that's an obvious thing to say, and even small children. Put your caps on your pens or it'll dry, but you know, if you get carried away while you're inking, and you forget, or you just misplace a pen someplace and then it's dried out, and don't want to do that. And that is, I would say, a completed inked panel. Not perfect, but I'm generally pretty happy with that one. So we can move on now. We can start to work on the second panel. We've still got about 40 minutes left on today's show, so we're going slow and steady, which is really the best way to ink. Take your time, don't make mistakes. I know that's not showing up very well on camera. That's the worst thing about this this blue line version of the art. It's very hard to see versus the penciled version. Okay, I'm going to resist the temptation to go in and do too much facial detail there, because that's going to look a lot better if I wait and use a thinner pen for that. We'll concentrate on some of the less fine details and the outline of the characters just now. I might have messed up a little bit of detail on the helmet there. On the right hand side, I don't think there's much I can do to fix that now other than possibly try and just ink over it at some point, or just fix it digitally, so that's not ideal. You will get to a point where when you're doing this that you start to make mistakes, you know, and your concentration will start to slip. And normally I would say that line there and that wing, the tip of that wing, it's not great. You can kind of, we can iron that out, but this is exactly, this is what I'm saying. The kind of mental energy and the focus that's required when you're inking, it's very hard to keep up for extended periods. So my suggestion would be, if you're doing this, to pace yourself, take breaks. Obviously I'm not taking a break because we're most of the way through the stream now. We've got less than half an hour on today's show, so I'm just going to power through it. But under any other circumstances, by this point, this is where I would be saying that it's time to take, you know, a short break. Step away from your desk for a couple of minutes and then come back. It's not just good for your mental health, but also for your posture, because invariably you're going to get very sort of hunched over at your drawing board or drawing table. It's good to just loosen up a bit. We're going to very carefully add in the spikes of Corbie's armour here. It's a very easy thing to mess up when you're inking. See right there, I just left my pen on the page just a second too long, and I got a bit of a dab of ink on there, just a little drop. That can happen too. Okay, and again, we're going to do this. We're going to go in and out and the trickiest part, fine details that benefit us to keep the pencil art right close so that we can exactly what that's supposed to look like. We might even want to Oh, I'm trying to. Well, there we go. Use a magnifying glass because this is a particularly small image. Whew. Okay, I'm not entirely happy with that, but when you work at that kind of super tiny scale, getting the kind of facial likeness that you want, it's probably not going to happen. We can go in there and tune some things up on that digitally after the event. And we could do the hand as well, I guess. And I kind of hate saying that. I always say that, you know, if something gets messed up, I say, well, we'll fix that later when we scan the image. But the reason I don't like saying it is because, of course, I'd rather get things right the first time and have less work to do when I scan it. I don't want to spend all day agonizing over tiny details. And as I said earlier in the stream, the truth of the matter is people are going to look at this for a second and they're going to move on, but it could end up being something that I spend hours just fighting over just to get right. So it's in my own best interests to try and keep errors and mistakes to a minimum and to do everything as efficiently as possible so that we don't waste time. And the last time we spent ironing out errors, the more time we have to spend on making more content, more comics, more sort of online projects, more things like Club Corbie, you know. The less time I have to spend agonizing over things, the more time I get to spend making stuff for all of you. And without a doubt, I'd rather get to make more things than spend a whole lot of time just fixing one thing over and over again till it's acceptable. and go over the character art a bit, I think, here, just to really drive home the impact. We'll just have some of these lines overlap the character art, because that is what they do in the original image. That little bit of overlap there really helps to sell the impact, really give the feeling that Corbie's getting thrown to the ground. And that sort of thing. It's really one of the most sort of fun and unique elements of drawing comics, is getting to do these sort of special effects like the vortexes and the impact of a character getting thrown around. I'm going to start to add some shading. Okay. I think I did pretty much manage to cover up that side of the helmet there. There was some detailing that I had messed up, but with some thoughtful use of a little bit of additional ink, we managed to cover that up, which is always good. So, as we approach the end of today's stream, I want to thank everyone who has been watching today, and welcome you to Club Corbie, and I hope that you will return and join us every day, every weekday, 2 PM till 4 PM UK time. And not sure how this has gone as far as our YouTube simulcast today. If it's been successful, I guess we'll find out after the event. But the plan is Twitch is going to remain my main focus. I just want to increase our potential audience and bring in viewers from YouTube. And potentially open this up to other platforms as well. If we have the ability to get the stream in front of more eyeballs and it isn't really much extra effort on my part, then it seems like a good idea. As always, you guys are what makes this all work, and your feedback and your encouragement is really what energizes me to keep doing this. And you know, when you leave comments in chat, when you follow or subscribe on YouTube now, I suppose, that's, you know, will always be a really big boost to me, to my morale, because, you know, I'm a sensitive artist, and I feel all the dizzying highs and the terrifying lows all the time. I appreciate all of you and the fact that you have so many options about things to watch on the internet, or who to follow, or, you know, in the case of the comic itself, what to read, and that you, if you do choose to spend that time with me, then that really means a lot. And I'm glad to have you in Club Corbie, and I hope to see you again on tomorrow's stream and on our streams in the future. Tomorrow will be inking, I'm sure. I didn't realise how many pages we had left to do in terms of what's left to be inked, what's left to be lettered as well after that. Basically it's this is page 5, so we're inking 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I expect that tomorrow we're definitely going to be inking, and I expect that by the time we come back after the weekend on Monday's show, we will probably still be inking, and might be well into next week. We might be inking for a little bit, a little while now before we change things up, and then we'll find something else to do, lettering, I guess. And we'll just keep changing things up, doing different things, and eventually, get excited. We'll get these pages out, and then after that we'll move on. We'll do another Corbie project after that. But for now, I have been John Porter.